Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the etrailer trailer hitch receiver here on our 2020 Dodge Grand Caravan. So this is what our trailer hitch is going to look like installed on the vehicle here. Now it actually has a hidden design, and what that means is the cross tube is actually tucked away back behind the bumper here. So the only thing we can see is the receiver tube, and this not only makes for the best overall appearance, it also gives us the best ground clearance possible. Now what we can see has a nice matte black finish, which is going to help blend in with the underside of the vehicle well. It's also going to help protect our hitch from rust over time, being that it is on the underside of the vehicle and more subjected to the elements. So adding a trailer hitch to your Grand Caravan is going to be an excellent option because it's going to make your vehicle that much more versatile. Now we can obviously use a trailer hitch for towing, but let's say we wanted to free up some more space inside the vehicle for us and the family on those long road trips. Or if we wanted to hit the trails, we could easily attach either a hitch-mounted bike rack or hitch-mounted cargo carrier. So in regards to towing, our trailer hitch has a 4,000-pound gross trailer weight rating. That's the amount we can pull outward on a receiver tube. And it also has a 400-pound tongue weight rating, which is the downward force on the receiver tube. Now keep in mind, these capacities are for the hitch only, which is tested separately of the vehicle. Therefore, you need to verify the vehicle's towing capacity in your owner's manual and abide by the lower of the two rated components, whether that is the hitch or the vehicle. So the receiver tube size is an industry standard. It's 2" by 2". Now this is the larger of the other typical sizes, so what that larger size allows for is it allows for you to choose for a much greater variety of those accessories that we talked about, such as ball mounts, hitch bike racks, and hitch cargo carriers. There's certainly more options for the larger opening, so it's great to have that selection. So on the side of the receiver tube, we're going to have our 5/8" diameter hitch pin hole. That's going to work great with our 5/8" diameter hitch pin and clip. Keep in mind, the hitch pin and clip doesn't actually come with a trailer hitch, and the reason for that is a lot of your accessories are actually going to come with their own. And then welded to the bottom of the receiver tube, we have our safety chain loops. Those work great with both the larger clevis style hooks as well as the smaller S-type. So a couple measurements for you guys here that are going to help you when you're selecting your hitch mounted accessories. The first one is the distance from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening. So this is going to be useful when you're selecting a ball mount. That way you can make sure you get the correct rise and drop to tow your trailer level. And we're looking at right about 13¼ inch. And then we have the distance from the center of the hitch pin hole to the outside edge of the bumper. That's going to be useful when you're selecting your folding accessories. That way you can make sure that while they're in the folded position, they don't contact the vehicle. And for this particular application here, we're looking at about 3½ inches. So in regards to installation, this one is pretty straightforward. There's no modifying to the vehicle required. Therefore, it's definitely something a weekend warrior or a do-it-yourselfer can do themselves. So really not that bad at all. I would say it'd probably take you around 1 to 2 hours depending on your experience level. Just common hand tools required. There is one tool you're going to need you might not have. That's a torque wrench, but you can actually rent this for free from most local auto parts stores. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and walk you through this entire process step by step now. Keep in mind, we're going to be doing it in the air to show you a little bit clearer view, but you can certainly do this on the ground as well. So the first step of our installation, we actually need to lower our exhaust. Now, in order to do this, there's going to be a bracket attached to the frame with 1 bolt. So we need to remove that bolt with a 13mm socket. Then once we have that bolt out, the bracket should come down and our exhaust should lower a few inches along with it. So it's kind of hard to see, but our bolt is going to be located kind of just directly behind the muffler up in this area here attached to the frame. So go ahead and get that out now. So there's what our bolt looks like. And our bracket sort of swung down there, and it's kind of hard to tell, but our exhaust is loose now as well. So directly beside that hanger that we just removed, you may or may not have an air conditioning line running parallel across the frame. So if you do have that, you want to take the included wire loom with your kit and just go ahead and place that over the smaller of the 2 lines up there. But again, that's only on certain models. We're going to be removing the bolts securing to the bottom of the frame. So these are actually the ones we're going to use for our hitch installation. So the hardware we need is actually already on the vehicle. We just have to remove it first. Now in order to remove it, we're going to need a 15 and an 18mm socket. So there's going to be 3 bolts over here on the driver's side and then 2 bolts on the passenger side. Now the passenger side is going to be super hard to see, so we're going to show you over on the driver's side. So first we're going to take our 15mm socket And you're probably going to need a breaker bar for these bolts because they are kind of tight. And we're going to be removing this bolt here to start off with. And then we have 2 more bolts here, which are going to be the larger 18mm bolts that we're going to need a socket for. So once I've broken them free, I'm going to switch over to my impact so I can get them out a little bit quicker. So there we go, there's one. That's the smaller of the 3. Now we have 2 more back here. So now that we have our 3 bolts out over here on the driver's side, we'll just simply repeat those same few steps over on the passenger side. Just keep in mind there's actually only 2 bolts on the passenger side. So I noticed that once I removed my 3 bolts from the frame here, this plate inside, which actually has the weld nuts for our 3 bolts, sort of shifted to the inside. And the weld nuts are actually not lined up with our holes here. So that's going to give us some problems when we go to reinstall our hitch. What we need to do is we need to take some sort of pry tool. We basically just need to pry that block over there in order to get our holes to line up again. So you can use any one of these holes here, but basically we just need to sort of shimmy this over until the weld nuts line up with the holes in the bottom of the frame. So now we'll take our hitch here and go ahead and get it into position. Now if you have an extra set of hands, that'll definitely help you out here. We're going to be using a pull jack to assist us so we can get it done with one person, but you're going to come up and over the exhaust on the passenger side first. Bumper beam inside the frame there aren't quite aligned with the holes in the bottom of the frame, so what we need to do is we're just taking some sort of pry tool here, we're sticking it in one of the holes, and we're just sort of using that to align the bumper beam there so it lines up with one of the holes in the frame. And then we'll have to hold it there, but once we get it in there, we should be able to start threading in some of our hardware. So I will say this is kind of a pain in the rear. It's definitely going to take a little bit of fidgeting or maneuvering in order to get all your bolts in there, but just take your time and be patient because we really don't want to strip those weld nuts. Once we have all of our bolts into position, we can go ahead and tighten everything down using an 18 and a 15mm socket. Now that we have all of our fasteners snug, we can come back with our torque wrench here and torque everything down to spec. Now keep in mind there is a different torque spec for our M10 bolts, the smaller ones, than there is for the M12 bolts, which are the larger ones. So we'll go ahead and torque everything down now. And now don't forget to raise your exhaust back up into position by resecuring the bracket to the bottom of the frame. So now if we notice once we have our hitch installed that the receiver tube is actually pushing up on the bottom of your bumper fascia, so that's actually fine. A little bit of stress really isn't going to cause any issues. We don't typically see any issues associated with this. In your instructions it states that if you want, you can actually trim the bottom part of the fascia there to relieve some of that stress, but I would rather not trim into the bumper fascia if we don't have to, so I'm just going to leave this as is. But if you guys want to trim yours, you're more than welcome to do so, but I don't think that little bit of pressure is going to cause any issues if we don't. So that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver here on our 2020 Dodge Grand Caravan.